Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 1969. A military base, restricted access, high security. The kind of place where things happened that the public never knew about, where secrets were kept, where operations occurred that would never appear in newspapers or history books, where the government did things it preferred to keep hidden. Muhammad Ali was there, not by choice. He'd been banned from boxing since 1967, stripped of his title for refusing the draft, exiled from the sport during his prime, vilified by America, called a traitor, a coward, a draft dodger. The man who'd been the heavyweight champion was now unemployed, broke, facing prison time, fighting legal battles that were bankrupting him. But someone in the military had an idea, a psychological operation, a propaganda opportunity, a way to humiliate Muhammad Ali while boosting military morale. They wanted to prove that Ali's anti-war stance came from cowardice, that his refusal to fight in Vietnam was because he was afraid. That the man who claimed to be the greatest was actually weak, and they had the perfect plan to demonstrate it. They arranged a secret sparring session. Not a real fight, not officially, just training, just practice, but against an opponent specifically chosen to destroy Ali, to break him, to prove he was all talk, to show soldiers that the man who wouldn't fight for his country couldn't actually fight at all. The opponent was Master Sergeant James the Hammer Morrison, Special Forces, hand-to-hand combat instructor, undefeated in military boxing competitions, 6'4", 230 pounds, trained in techniques that weren't legal in civilian boxing, trained to kill, trained to hurt people efficiently, a man whose job was violence, who taught soldiers how to end fights quickly and brutally. The sparring session was arranged under the guise of a training demonstration. Ali was told it would be light sparring, show the troops some techniques, sign some autographs, do some PR to improve his image, make the government look less like they were persecuting him, make it seem like there was no bad blood, just the champ helping out soldiers, patriotic service even if he wouldn't serve officially. Ali agreed because he needed money, because his legal team said cooperation might help his case, because showing goodwill toward the military might make judges more lenient, because he was desperate and backed into a corner and willing to do almost anything to avoid prison. The session was scheduled for 1400 hours, 2 p.m., in the base gymnasium. Attendance mandatory for all available personnel. Over 300 soldiers packed into the gym, excited to see Muhammad Ali in person, excited to see the famous mouth, the pretty face, the man who danced and talked and claimed to be the greatest. Many of them hated him for dodging the draft, for refusing to serve while they risked their lives. This was their chance to see him up close. There was a film crew. Official military documentation. Standard procedure for training sessions. 2 cameras, professional operators, recording everything for the archives, for training purposes, for future reference, or so they said. Ali arrived in his workout gear, still looked like a champion, still moved like a fighter. 3 years away from the ring hadn't taken that away. He was rusty maybe, out of practice, but the fundamentals were still there, the speed, the reflexes, the confidence. He thought this was going to be like sparring, thought he was doing a demonstration, thought this was friendly. Morrison was waiting in the ring, already warmed up, already focused, looking at Ali not like a celebrity, but like a target, like an enemy, like someone he'd been ordered to hurt. The soldiers watching could feel it, the tension, the hostility. This wasn't going to be friendly sparring. This was something else. A colonel briefed them, said this was combat demonstration. Show the troops what real fighting looked like. Ali would represent civilian boxing. Morrison would represent military combat training. They'd spar, show different techniques, give soldiers insight into hand-to-hand combat. Educational, valuable, important for their training. But the rules were different. Not standard boxing rules. Modified for realism. More like the fighting soldiers would face in combat. Fewer restrictions, more contact, harder hits. the kind of rules that favored Morrison's training, that put Ali at a disadvantage, that set him up to fail. They touched gloves, the bell rang, and Morrison came at Ali like he was trying to kill him. Not sparring, not demonstration, actual fighting, actual violence. Morrison threw combinations that were designed to injure, to break bones, to end fights permanently, using techniques that were illegal in boxing: elbows, forearms, strikes to the back of the head, kidney shots, everything he'd been trained to do in combat. Ali was shocked, retreated, tried to create distance, tried to use his boxing skills, tried to make this look like sparring, even though Morrison was clearly trying to hurt him. Ali landed jabs, clean shots, the kind that would score points in a real fight, but Morrison ignored them, walked through them, kept coming like pain meant nothing. The soldiers were cheering, screaming, excited to see Ali getting attacked, excited to see the draft dodger getting what he deserved, excited to see their guy dominating the famous boxer. This was what they'd wanted: proof that Ali was all talk, proof that he couldn't actually fight, proof that refusing to serve came from weakness. Morrison caught Ali with a shot to the body. Illegal placement. Too low, too hard. Ali doubled over. Morrison followed with a strike to the back of Ali's head while he was vulnerable. Ali went down to one knee. The referee should have stopped it, should have called fouls, should have protected Ali. But the referee was military, was part of the plan, just watched. Ali got up slowly, understanding flooding over him. This wasn't friendly sparring. This wasn't a demonstration for training purposes. This was an ambush, a setup, a planned humiliation designed to break him physically and psychologically, designed to prove to 300 soldiers that the man who refused to fight for America couldn't actually fight at all, that his anti-war stance came from cowardness, not conviction, that Muhammad Ali was all talk and no substance. But they'd made a critical mistake. They'd forgotten who they were dealing with. They'd assumed 3 years away from boxing had weakened Ali, had dulled his skills, had turned the champion into someone ordinary. They'd underestimated what lived inside Muhammad Ali: the pride, the refusal to be broken, the absolute certainty that he was the greatest regardless of what anyone said or did. They were about to learn they were wrong. Ali got to his feet, angry now, genuinely angry in a way he rarely allowed himself to be, understanding completely what this was, understanding the trap, understanding that Morrison had been ordered to hurt him, that the illegal shots weren't mistakes, that the referee wasn't going to protect him, that he was on his own in a rigged fight designed to destroy him. But Ali wasn't going to give them that satisfaction, wasn't going to quit, wasn't going to cover up and survive, was going to show every person in this gym exactly why he was Muhammad Ali, why he was the heavyweight champion even though they'd stripped his title, why 3 years of exile hadn't changed who he fundamentally was. He changed his entire approach. Stopped trying to make this look friendly. Stopped pulling punches. Stopped treating Morrison like a sparring partner. Started treating him like an actual opponent who needed to be dealt with decisively. Started using everything in his arsenal. Every technique, every bit of skill accumulated through years of being the best fighter on the planet. This wasn't demonstration anymore. This was Muhammad Ali defending himself, protecting his dignity, proving his worth, showing them all that you don't break the greatest by setting him up. Ali started landing real shots, not sparring taps, not demonstration punches, real boxing, the kind that ended fights, the kind that sent people to hospitals, the kind that made champions. Combinations thrown with bad intentions, jabs that snapped Morrison's head back violently, hooks that made Morrison's legs shake, uppercuts that lifted Morrison's entire body off the canvas. Ali was faster than Morrison could track, more skilled than Morrison could handle, better at actual fighting than any amount of military training could match. Morrison tried to respond, tried to use his combat techniques, tried to employ the dirty tactics that worked in street fights and warfare. But Ali was ready now, saw everything coming, slipped punches that were meant to hurt him, countered with combinations that broke Morrison down systematically, made Morrison look slow, made him look clumsy, made him look completely outmatched, which he was, because Muhammad Ali on his worst day was still better than almost anyone on their best day. The gymnasium went from cheering to stunned silence. The soldiers had come expecting to see Ali humbled, expecting to see their guy Morrison beat up the famous boxer who dodged the draft, expecting vindication for their service while Ali stayed home. Instead, they were watching something completely different. They were watching Muhammad Ali, exiled from boxing for 3 years, rusty and out of practice, absolutely dismantling a Special Forces hand-to-hand combat instructor, making it look easy, making it look like Morrison never had a chance, making it clear that the greatest meant the greatest, regardless of circumstances. Morrison was bleeding now, nose clearly broken, blood streaming down his face, cut above his left eye from a particularly vicious jab, breathing hard, hurt, stumbling, taking shots he couldn't defend, getting hit with punches he couldn't see coming. The fight should have been stopped minutes ago. Morrison was done, was finished, was taking unnecessary punishment that would have permanent consequences. But the referee just watched, didn't intervene, didn't call fouls, didn't protect the fighter who was clearly losing badly. Because stopping it would mean admitting the setup failed, would mean acknowledging that Ali won, would mean confessing that their plan to humiliate the draft dodger had backfired spectacularly. Ali could have finished it, could have knocked Morrison out cold, could have put him on the canvas unconscious. But Ali didn't, because he understood what would happen if he did, understood that completely destroying a military instructor on a military base while being filmed would have consequences, would turn this from humiliation to disaster, would make him look like he was attacking the military, would give them justification to make his legal problems worse. So Ali held back, kept hitting Morrison but not hard enough to knock him out, kept winning but not so decisively that it would look like complete domination, walked the line between defending himself and destroying his opponent, showed enough skill to prove his point without going so far that it would be used against him. After 3 rounds, the colonel stopped it, called it a draw, said both fighters showed good technique, said it was valuable training for everyone watching, said the demonstration was complete, dismissed the soldiers, ended it quickly before what really happened became too obvious, before the humiliation of Morrison's defeat became undeniable. But everyone who was there knew what they'd seen, knew Ali had won, knew Morrison had been beaten, knew the plan to embarrass Ali had backfired spectacularly, knew the draft dodger had just beaten one of the military's best fighters, and that couldn't get out. That couldn't become public knowledge. That would undermine everything the government was trying to do to Ali. The film was confiscated immediately, both cameras, all footage. The colonel personally took the tapes, said they were classified, said they were military property, said they were not to be discussed, ordered everyone present to sign non-disclosure agreements, made it clear that talking about what happened would be considered breaching military security, would have serious consequences, would potentially involve court-martial for soldiers or prosecution for civilians. Ali left the base that day knowing he'd won, but knowing nobody would ever know it, knowing the footage existed but would never be released, knowing that somewhere in a government archive there was proof that he'd beaten a military combat instructor while exiled from boxing, but also knowing that tape would never see daylight, would never be shown, would be locked away forever, because showing it would contradict the narrative the government wanted. Over the years, rumors circulated, stories from soldiers who'd been there, whispers about a secret fight on a military base, about Ali destroying a special forces instructor, about tape that was confiscated, about footage that proved Ali could still fight even after 3 years away from boxing. But without the tape, it was just rumors, just stories, just unverified claims that couldn't be proven. Some of the soldiers who were there tried to talk about it after leaving the military, tried to tell people what they'd witnessed. But without evidence, without footage, without documentation, nobody believed them. Too much like making up stories about a famous person. Too much like trying to create mythology around Muhammad Ali. In 1974, after Ali had his boxing license restored, after he'd regained the heavyweight title, a journalist asked him about the Fort Bragg incident, asked if it was true, asked what happened. Ali smiled, said he didn't remember any sparring session at Fort Bragg, said if it happened, he was sure it was just friendly training, said he had no comment about confiscated footage because he didn't know anything about any footage. But people who knew Ali said his eyes told a different story, said he remembered perfectly, said he knew exactly what had happened, said he was protecting himself by denying it, by not giving the government reason to make the tape public with edited context, by not claiming victory in a fight that officially never happened. Morrison never spoke about it publicly. Retired from the military in 1972. Died in 1998. Never confirmed or denied the stories. Never acknowledged that the sparring session happened. Took whatever he knew to his grave. The soldiers who were there eventually aged out, retired. Most stayed quiet. A few told their families, their kids, their grandkids, passed down the story like oral history, like legend, like something that might be true or might be embellished over time. The film has never surfaced, officially doesn't exist. No government agency acknowledges possessing it. No archive lists it. No Freedom of Information Act request has ever successfully retrieved it. It's either been destroyed or is classified at a level that makes it inaccessible. Either way, the result is the same. Nobody has seen it. Nobody will see it. The fight that proved Ali could still dominate in 1969 remains invisible. What makes this particularly significant is timing. 1969 was the middle of Ali's exile, the period when people questioned whether he can still fight, whether 3 years away from boxing had ruined him, whether the government had successfully broken the greatest boxer alive. The Fort Bragg footage would have answered that question definitively. Would have shown that Ali in 1969, rusty and out of practice, could still beat elite fighters, could still dominate when he needed to, could still be the greatest even when they tried to prove he wasn't. But that footage remaining hidden served everyone's purposes. The military didn't want it shown because it proved their psychological operation failed, proved their guy lost to the draft dodger, proved Ali was still formidable. The government didn't want it shown because it contradicted their narrative about Ali being afraid to fight, being weak, being all talk. And Ali didn't push for its release because he didn't need the trouble, didn't need to antagonize the people who could still send him to prison. So the tape sits somewhere, maybe in a vault, maybe in storage, maybe destroyed. But the story remains, the legend grows. The fight that nobody has seen becomes more famous for being unseen than it might have been if it had been released. The mystery adds to Ali's mythology. The forbidden nature makes it more interesting. The government's desire to hide it makes people wonder what they're hiding. In 2016, when Ali died, some Fort Bragg witnesses finally spoke openly. Non-disclosure agreements felt less binding decades later. Private First Class Robert Chen, now 72, gave a detailed interview. "I was 21, Chen said, fresh out of basic, excited to see Ali. Most of us hated him for dodging while we prepared for Vietnam. We wanted Morrison to beat him up, wanted proof Ali was a coward. That's what our officers promised. But that's not what happened," Chen continued. Morrison tried to kill Ali, using illegal strikes, hitting after the bell. The referee wasn't calling anything. This was a setup. For 90 seconds, Morrison was winning, hurting Ali. Then Ali changed, Shen recalled. Got up from a knockdown different. Stopped being friendly. Started actually fighting. And when Ali decided to really fight, Morrison didn't stand a chance. Seeing Ali live, seeing him move, seeing combinations at full speed up close, that was understanding why he was the greatest. Military training couldn't compete with that skill. Shen described the final round. Morrison's face was destroyed, blood everywhere, stumbling, getting hit with punches he couldn't see. Ali could have knocked him unconscious 10 times, could have hospitalized him, but he didn't. He kept hitting, but not full power. Kept winning, but not so dramatically it looked like humiliation. That was mercy. That took more discipline than just knocking him out. Sergeant William Crawford also spoke after Ali died. Confiscation happened instantly. Colonel grabbed both cameras. MPs collected all recording equipment. We signed non-disclosure forms in the gym, told this was classified. Anyone talking would face prosecution. Most stayed quiet. Years later, nobody believed us without proof. But still no footage. Still no tape. Still no physical evidence beyond testimony. Still just stories and memories and the knowledge that somewhere, somehow, there's proof of Muhammad Ali doing what he did best. Even when the government tried to stop him. Even when he wasn't supposed to be fighting. Even when they set him up to fail. He won anyway. And they had to hide it because the truth was too dangerous to their narrative. The lesson is both frustrating and profound. Sometimes the most important moments in history are the ones nobody sees. Sometimes truth gets locked away because it's inconvenient to power. Sometimes proof exists but remains inaccessible forever. Sometimes we have to trust testimony and believe witnesses, even without video evidence to support their claims. Sometimes the absence of footage becomes its own kind of proof of significance. If the tape didn't show something worth hiding, why hide it permanently? If Ali didn't win convincingly, why confiscate the evidence? The very fact that it was suppressed so aggressively suggests what it contained was significant enough to bury forever. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to know that some truths remain hidden by those in power. Subscribe for more stories about the fights that never made it to history books and the footage that was deemed too dangerous to release. And remember, somewhere in a government archive, there's footage of Muhammad Ali proving he was still the greatest in 1969 when they tried to break him. We'll probably never see it. The tape remains classified or destroyed. But the people who were there know exactly what happened. And their testimony has to be enough. The forbidden fight lives in memory. The confiscated tape remains hidden. But the truth endures.